People look for evidences and people want evidence, rightly so.
The continuum of human presence in India, widespread, not just localized here and there, widespread presence. Artifacts have been found in different parts of India. Nobody in the south is saying we used to live in the north, then our ancestors were defeated and they came to the south and we are living in the south.
No literature at all.
Nothing. Zero evidence. Tamil people have got cultural memory of the Sangam periods. 3 Sangam periods, which if you look at the timelines proposed, we have 10,000 years of cultural memory in Tamil Nadu, but there's no memory of invasion or migration.
Actually, they contradict themselves.
The cultural artifacts of what we identify as Hindu faith is there throughout over here. It is not as if these invading Aryans or migrating Aryans brought the Sanskrit and these things. And very superficial people, when they hear nakshatra, they immediately say, oh, this is Jyotisha, this is horoscopes, I don't believe in any of these things. Astrology, I don't believe in these. Pedestrian response. They don't realize the kind of achievements of their ancestors in astronomy, computation and all of these things. We have covered several areas now. Archaeology, astronomy, linguistics, literature, and we came to genetics in addition.
Okay, welcome back once again, sir.
Thank you.
So in the last segment, we discussed about, generally we were setting the context of what this Aryan invasion is about and how badly it is being projected and how false it is. People look for evidences, and most of the podcast on my channel, that if you give solid evidence, scientific evidence is what it becomes more popular. And people want evidence, rightly so. That how do you say that, right? So I would like you to kind of highlight the evidences. There are many touch points of evidences that you have presented in many of your presentations. But at least for this podcast, if you can highlight in terms of astronomy, in terms of archaeology, in terms of genetics, and you use the word archaeogenetics, right? So, and we ended our the previous conversation with the mutation on the skin, right? So, I would like to start with, whatever I have understood, there is a certain haplogroup that Indians belong to. That is, I don't know, is it R1, A1 or something?
Several of them, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, I would like you to say those specific things, that this is what all Indians belong to, so that it becomes like a strong evidence for people to understand, boss, we are all the same. There is no difference between north, south or anything else, right? We are all belonging to the same haplogroup.
Right.
So, yeah, please take it away, sir.
So, that's a big topic.
Yes, yes.
So, I may not be able to communicate all the points to you. So, I recommend people to see my talks, many talks and Sangam talks and other channels where I've spoken about the evidence at length with PowerPoint slides. So, you can take a look at that. But we'll touch on the high level on several of these things. So, let us start first with archaeology. There are 2 aspects to archaeology. One aspect of archaeology will talk about the presence of humans in India for what duration of time, right? So paleontology and archaeology must go together over here. So when we discuss the antiquity of human presence in India, our researchers have uncovered artifacts like stone tools from more than 1 million years ago.
Okay.
In places like Tamil Nadu, where people like Shanti Papu and other such researchers, they have recovered these artifacts, and you might wonder, how do you know a stone tool is that old?
Yeah, how do you know?
They use a scientific method called OSL dating, which is optical simulated luminescence.
Okay.
So these are to do with the isotopic content as well as the other thing, the rock specimen. When it is buried in the mud or earth and soil, then it is not exposed to cosmic rays and things of this nature.
Okay.
But when it is outside, exposed to cosmic rays, and certain kind of other reactions happened. So they can try to calibrate it in the lab and say, if it has been lying in the soil, for how long has it been, for it to have a certain kind of ratios that they're measuring out of these things, isotopic measures. So they're able to calibrate these things. So in such calibrations, we have got stone tools from 1 million years ago in places like Tamil Nadu. And the Next thing is, biologists say that 1 million years ago, it is not like the modern Homo sapien. So they think there's a different species that we can identify as Homo erectus.
Okay.
Now, when people hear terms like Homo erectus, Denisovans, Neanderthals, and other such things, we tend to think, oh, completely different. And Homo sapiens have dropped out of heaven or some such place suddenly 200,000 years ago. No, that's not true. It's a continuum, right? Evolution. It's a continuum where slight changes keep happening over time. So the people who lived even in 1 million years ago, who we identify as Homo erectus, they too lived in social groups. They too had a cranial capacity of around 1000 cc or so. They are known to have used fire. They are known to have lived in social groups. So they had some kind of a social structure that we identify with modern societies and those kinds of things. So we have stone tools from that time. We have stone tools from Atirampakam, very specialized stone tools that Shantipapu has found, dating back 300,000 years ago to 175,000 years ago, that is showing stone tools for specialized tasks like scraping the flesh from the skin of an animal, or to cut the skin, or to have a javelin point to pierce the skin. All these specialized tools calls for abstract planning. These kind of things are associated with people with superior cranial capacity, like modern Homo sapiens, right? We've got a cranial capacity of 1400 cc. Associated with that, that are able to do abstract planning and do these things. So the bottom line is that we are seeing evidence of artifacts coming from very ancient times, from 1 million years ago to 300,000 years ago. 300,000 years ago, we are finding evidence in India of stone tools being made by some creature, human, that has got superior cranial capacity, not 1000 cc, but maybe even higher. Now, around this time, we also have artifacts like the Narmada skull. Narmada skull was found in 1982 by Arun Sonakia of Geological Survey of India. That was studied by a researcher called Kenneth Kennedy. And he found the cranial capacity of that specimen is 1400 cc. Why is it relevant? It's relevant because it is close to modern Homo sapien capacity, right? So Kenneth Kennedy proposed this is an archaic form of Homo sapien at that very early period of time. What are we talking now? 300,000 years ago. Then moving forward in time, we got some more artifacts spread all over India in different periods of time. Then the proposal that out of Africa, the genetic theories start about out of Africa, and the modern Homo sapien is supposed to have evolved in Africa, maybe Olduvai Valley or some such place like that, and groups of them have migrated out. So in one migration out of Africa, proposed around 90,000 years ago, they're supposed to cross the Gulf of Oman and walked along the coast and come into India around 90 to 80,000 years ago and spread out to Southeast Asia and other such places. So what we identify is artifacts with the so-called Homo sapien, an archaic Homo sapien 300,000 years ago, and very ancient tools belonging maybe to Homo erectus about 1 million years ago. We got varieties of stone tools at different levels of sophistication in India. Then going on to much more recent archaeological finds, whether in Mohenjo-daro, Harappa, or Kiradi and other such places, we got a whole lot of evidences.
So sorry to interrupt you, sir. So in terms of this timeline that you spoke about, I mean, the geography obviously is also changed, right? Because the continents have moved. Right?
No, that is the wrong statement that many people have.
Okay.
The continental drift does not happen in terms of thousands of years. It happens over millions of years.
No, so this timeline, what we are talking about is a million, right?
1 million years ago, India was the way it is.
Okay.
More than 20 million years ago, India as an island has already joined into Asia.
Okay.
Himalayas have already grown.
So the current position is what we are referring to.
Yes, the height of Himalayas would have been not so much, but the point is it was already there 1 million years ago. So continental drift does not play any role in what we are talking right now, because that's much, much more ancient.
Okay.
So anyway, going forward, what have I said so far? I've said archaeological evidence is there for presence of humans, whether you call them Homo erectus, Denisovans, and Homo sapien. For the longest time, continuum record is there. One aspect of archaeology. Second aspect of archaeology, it pertains to the so-called Aryan Invasion / migration theory. Now, in archaeology, we say that if a foreign people have come into your place, we expect to see a change in the ceramic record.
Right.
Ceramic in this case means the pottery. in India, a certain style of pottery has been followed. If a new people have come into your place, we expect to see their style of archaeology in your archaeological layer.
Correct.
So that is what we look for. So if the proposal is that Aryans came in 1500 BCE, we must see in the Indian archaeological records, wherever you're digging, we expect to see a change in the record. And so people try to see where is the change in pottery record. Nothing is to be found. In India, we got something called OCP, ochre colored pottery. We got the painted graveware. We got the northern graveware. All of these kind of things have been found. Different places have been found. Now, OCP is what some people said, this is evidence of Aryan invasion. But then there are recent papers that are saying OCP pottery is not found in India from 1500 BC, but is there even from 3000 BC. Even from 3000 BC. So what does that tell you? It tells you that there's a continuum even of the technology for the longest time, and there's no evidence of foreign archaeology into India. So if you consider archaeology alone, we answered two questions. The continuum of human presence in India, widespread, not just localized here and there, widespread presence. Artifacts have been found on different parts of India. Second, as it pertains to the Aryan invasion / migration, we have said there is no change in the pottery record. So we have talked about two things over here in archaeology. Let's leave that aside now.
Right.
Let us go to the next line of evidence. In terms of textual evidence, I already hinted this in the previous episode, but if you take a sampling of Indian intellectuals from various geographies and timelines, nobody has got cultural memory or whatever of an invasion or a migration.
Yeah.
Nobody is saying we used to live beyond the mountains. Our ancestors crossed the mountains and came to this place. We drove away the people who lived there and pushed them to the south, and we started living over there. Nobody in the south is saying we used to live in the north. Then our ancestors were defeated and they came to the south, and we are living in the south now.
No literature at all.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Zero evidence. So there's no cultural memory, which is even more astonishing because the Tamil people have got a cultural memory of the Sangam periods. 3 Sangam periods, which if you look at the timelines proposed, we have 10,000 years of cultural memory in Tamil Nadu, but there's no memory of invasion or migration.
Right, yeah. Actually, they contradict themselves.
Yes.
The discovery of Kiradi, which is there, says a different story of people living here.
Right.
But now the problem that they are proud of that, obviously, because they are saying that it's our own, and there was some politics going around that the archaeologists were shifted and stuff like that. But right now, what I am saying is that they are the ones who said that Aryans came and we were oppressed and all that. No, but the discovery of Kiradi says a different story. That the civilization was already here.
Right. Not only that, there are several other things, but I won't move to that area right now. Let's continue the evidence point of view. There's a lot of evidence that shows what you're trying to say over here, that there is no question of the so-called Dravidians being separate over here.
Yeah.
In fact, every evidence shows they're integrated deeply as one culture throughout the country.
Correct.
Anyway, going to the next one, astronomy. If you look at astronomy and you compare it with what the linguists are trying to say, linguists are trying to say that because of Proto-Indo-European construction of an ancestral language from where Sanskrit and other things have come, they are proposing that every Vedic literature was composed in India after 1500 BCE. For example, Max Muller, he said that Vedic periods can be divided into the Chandas period, Mantra period, Sutra period, Brahmana period, all these kind of things. And he proposed about 100 years, 200 years between them. From 1200 BC till 600 or 200 BC, put 200 years gap and all these things. He compressed the entire timeline into that. And that was his proposal.
I don't know how he came up with that equidistant timeline.
He was contested a lot for that kind of thing. So anyway, according to him, this is the Vedic period. Prior to that, there was a Harappa period. There's one more line of evidence in archaeology I did not mention, but I'll come to that now. B.B. Lal, one of our famous archaeologists who passed away recently, so he has done a whole lot of his lifetime he spent over here. In fact, he was working under Mortimer Wheeler in the 1940s. That's the kind of continuum he's got from that period till 2000 and so. So he said towards the end of his career, there is no periodization in the cultural history of India. He said, if you think there is a Vedic period, Harappa period followed by Vedic period, he said the artifacts are there continuously everywhere.
Correct.
For example, we have the Proto-Shiva symbol in Mohenjo-daro. What is that doing there? In Mohenjo-daro, 3000 BCE.
Yeah.
You have, for example, there's a figurine showing Namaste, terracotta figurine.
Yeah.
Namaste is a Vedantic concept saying
And even
that
yogic poses as
the
well.
Narayana in me is bowing to the Narayana in you.
Yeah.
That's Vedic. What is that doing there? We have terracotta figurines showing the Sindoor symbol in women. Even today, married Hindu women wear the Sindoor symbol. So the cultural continuity from those days. And like you said, yoga asana positions, we are finding terracotta figurines in Kalibangan and other places. Kalibangan, we got a Shivalinga over there. So what does this tell you? It tells us that the cultural artifacts of what we identify as Hindu faith is there throughout over here.
Yeah.
It is not as if these invading Aryans or migrating Aryans
Right.
brought the Sanskrit and these things.
Correct.
So this is there in the archaeology part of it. Now, when we go to the astronomy part of it, Max Muller and others have proposed that Vedic literature starts around 1200 BCE up to 200 BC. So our expectation is that when it started orally and became written at some point, whatever, and all those kind of things, we expect to see evidences from 1200 BC onwards. But our Brahmanas, our Upanishads, our other works are showing great antiquity in the astronomy they contain. For example, if we can take a look at Vedanga Jyotisha, it's one of the Vedangas. 6
Correct.
Vedangas is Jyotisha.
Yeah.
And one of the leading books is Vedanga Jyotisha. It is either authored by Lagadha or attributed to him.
Yeah.
So in that, there is a reference to an astronomical phenomena. It is saying that winter solstice occurred and the sun and moon came together in what we identify as Dhanishta Nakshatra. Now the problem is, in today, winter solstice does not occur when the sun and moon are in Dhanishta Nakshatra. It is happening in a different nakshatra entirely. Now we also know that Earth is precessing. So in addition to our rotation, 24-hour rotation, in addition to going around the sun in 365.24 days, Earth has got 3 more degrees of motion at least. So in that, one more, the motion we are interested in is axial precession. Axial precession is as the Earth is rotating, we are tilted. We're tilted on the axis, and we are pointing at today what we call Polaris, right? This is a north celestial pole. Earth appears to be rotating about Polaris, right? It goes from west to east. So heavenly bodies appear to be going east to west. Sun rises in the east, sets in the west because of this motion, right? And that point where I'm pointing to in the northern sky, that is immobile. Think of it as I'm pivoted over there like a disco ball, and I'm rotating over there. That point is not changing over there. But Earth is now slowly tracing a circle in the sky. And this circle, huge circle, takes 26,000 years to complete.
Wow.
This is called axial precession. Today we understand it's happening because of gravitational action of Sun, Moon, and to a lesser extent Jupiter. That's why Earth is precessing like this. And the mental picture that I give people is if you play to the top as a child, right? So you tie the string around the top and you twirl it, and the top spins very, very fast. As it is spinning, sometimes there's a wobble, a slow wobble. Earth is doing that. The fast spin is 24 hours and the slow wobble takes around 26,000 years. Why is that relevant to us? That is relevant to us because annually you expect that when winter solstice happens or equinox or whatever, that should remain constant if the Earth is not precessing. But over thousands of years as the Earth is precessing, that point continues to change. So Vedanga Jyotisha said winter solstice occurs when the sun and moon came together in Dhanishta Nakshatra. If we use modern planetarium software and ask when was winter solstice last in Dhanishta Nakshatra, the answer comes back as 1400 BCE.
Okay.
That's 3,400 years before almost. That is when we had winter solstice occurring in Dhanishta Nakshatra. That is pointing the antiquity of Vedanga Jyotisha.
Correct.
That's the first data point I'll give you. The second data point, the story of Dhruva. You know the story of Dhruva, right? So Dhruva was a child with an unhappy childhood because his father, the king, married a second time. And one day he goes and sits on his father's lap, and the younger wife shoos him away, saying, "You have no place in your father's lap." And the poor child is going to his mother, cries and says, "Where is my place on earth?" She teaches him karma theory and other things, but he's not satisfied. So he goes off and does tapasya. And one fine day, Bhagavan comes on, "What do you want?" And he wants nothing. And Bhagavan says, "After your time, I'll make you into an immobile star in the sky. your position will be highest in the sky. Everybody will go in pradakshina around you, including Saptarishis, they'll go in pradakshina around you. That is your place, Dhruva. And so he also says, your mother Sumati will be next to you. Very important, because that's an archaeoastronomical data point. This comes in Vishnu Purana. This data point, if you try to say today's Polaris, there is no companion nearby.
Yeah.
If you try to see when was the companion near this, the date goes back to 2800 BCE. In 2800 BCE, Thuban was a pole star.
Okay.
And next to Thuban, there's a small companion. So when Vedavyasa put together this Puranas, Vishnu Purana, at that time, that was the pole star. That's how we date Vishnu Purana. Now, that is not the only data point. We have something called Kali Yuga, which turns out to be a clustering of planets in the Revati Nakshatra.
Right.
If you go in the planetarium software and find out when that happened, it comes to 3102 BCE. That is when planets were clustered in the Revati Nakshatra. That is February 18th, 3102 BC. We can simulate that in today's planetarium software.
Correct.
This is a reference in many, many works today in India. We have this Kali Yuga reference. Like this, we have got many, many instances. There's one more instance I'd like to tell you, the story of Aditi. So Aditi, in Aitreya Brahmana, there is a reference that says the yajna went away from the Devas. Devas are unable to perform any ceremony. They did not know where it had gone to. They prayed to Aditi and said, please tell us where it has gone. Aditi told, I will tell you where it has gone, but I want something from you. They asked what is it? She said, all sacrifices will begin and end with me. So Tilak interpreted this by saying, what has happened is Indians had a calendar of the sky, celestial calendar, that had become out of date because of precision. Because the precision has changed, you don't know what is the correct time to do your Vedic functions. So our ancestors have reset the calendar to Aditi. Aditi is saying vernal equinox will begin with me and end with me. That's what she's saying. That means they have reset the calendar to Aditi. For us, Aditi corresponds to Punarvashu Nakshatra. It's got two stars, Diti and Aditi, which we call Castor and Pollux in Greek, right? So if you try to see when was Aditi at, or Punarvashu Nakshatra at the vernal equinox point, you must go back to 6000 BCE. In 6000 BCE, this is what had happened over there. Then I also shown the story of Ashwins and Surya, Ashwins and Chaya, and so the story I've shown in several places. This date comes out to 7200 BC when Ashwins were the winter solstice, heliacal rising with the sun. So what is happening over here? We have got verifiable evidence from the Brahmanas, from the Upanishads and other works that is giving us these very ancient dates, which are completely opposed to the linguistic theory that is trying to position things in a certain way. So bottom line, with Vedic astronomy, we got a lot of ancient dates that cannot be explained if you buy the linguistic theory.
Correct.
If you buy the linguistic theory, Vedas were composed in India. Why were Vedas composed in India? Because they got the geographical identifiers of India, the rivers of India and the mountains and all such things. So it's composed in India. According to linguistic theory, in Aryan Invasion migration, they should be in India after 1500 BC.
Correct.
But the paradox is, the internal evidence is pointing to great antiquity. Now, there are two ways to deal with this. One way is to say, I don't believe in any of these dates. And very superficial people, when they hear nakshatra, they immediately say, oh, this is Jyotisha, this is horoscopes. I don't believe in any of these things. Astrology, I don't believe in. This is a pedestrian response. They don't realize the kind of achievements of their ancestors in astronomy, computation, and all of these things. Anyway, we leave that aside. So we talked about astronomy, talked about archaeology. And we'll talk about linguistics a bit. So linguistics proposed through comparative method that the first wave of migrations happened from Central Asia towards Balto-Slavic areas. So Balto-Slavic languages were the first to evolve, and the ancient languages. Then the third wave of migrations was towards India and Iran. So Sanskrit and Iranian languages are the last to evolve out of Proto-Indo-European, according to linguistic theory.
This is that theory that say.
Yes. So we are talking about 3000 BC for these guys. We're talking about 1500 BC for these guys. This is the theory from linguistics. Recently, there was a paper by Hegarty. Hegarty is the name of the author over there, where he tried to use Bayesian phylogenetics, mathematical techniques with a whole lot of mathematics over here to try to estimate these things statistically. His research shows that the earliest languages over here are the Indic and Sanskrit. He says they had a common ancestor. If you go back in time, they had a common ancestor more than 7,000 years ago. This is the opposite of what you heard in linguistics theory.
Correct.
He also says Balto-Slavic is the last language to diverge out, and they had a common ancestor about 3,000 years ago. This is the opposite what linguistics is trying to tell you.
Direction has changed.
Direction has changed. So the only way it can be explained is out of India.
Yeah.
That's the only way you can explain this. So that is as far as linguistics is concerned. And people can refer to these works that I'm talking about. Then if you go to, we talked about these things, genetics. Genetics as a field of study started around 1990 or so, when computing technologies, everything had progressed to a point. Remember, Pentium computers just came out in 1995 or I think that time frame.
Yeah.
And from there, evolution of computing technology has changed. Before that, we had 386 and 486 machines. If you remember, Intel 386, Intel 486, which are 16-bit computers. And so these are limited in the kind of computations they could do. So with Pentium, more calculations could be done 32-bit and these kinds of things. Computing power increased, plus other laboratory methods had improved. So around 1990s or so, people started researching. Initially, they took the gender chromosomes. As humans, we got 22 autosomes, chromosomes, and we got one pair of gender chromosomes, right? So if we are, male has got X and Y, and the female has got XX. So this is the chromosomal structure. Now, the first research tried to see the ancestry by looking at something called maternal mitochondrial DNA. There are some reasons why I'm not going to that depth over here. Yeah. But anyway, maternal mitochondrial DNA and the Y chromosome associated with the male. They try to track these things. So the samples are limited, about 100 samples, 200 samples. It was expensive those days. The human genome was not yet decoded. Very expensive to do it. So early studies in the 90s, there were proposals that the differences in the genome between different people tells us a story of human migrations. This was the theory by the people who pioneered this whole work at that time. So early papers proposed that it is out of Africa, and humans probably evolved around 200,000 years ago. It's out of Africa. We can trace all the ancestry to the maternal mitochondria and the Y chromosome to Africa. That was the theory. That is where I took this 90,000 years ago out of India, all these things came about from that kind of thinking. Now, this theory eventually grew to a point where people went deeper and deeper to try to understand this. When one of the early things is something called fixation index. So fixation index was an attempt to cluster the human population into various buckets. For example, if I come to India and look at all the mutations that different Indians have, haplogroups in other words, right? If you look at all the haplogroups, we want to try and cluster them into different buckets. For example, if I presume that there's a difference between Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras, and so on, I expect some genetic differences. I expect to cluster the Indian population into these 4 buckets. Now, to the astonishment of early researchers, many research has been done, whether northern India, southern India, they could not differentiate the population in India. They could not say this is Aryan, this is Dravidian, this is Tamil, that is Kannada, this is Brahmin, that is Kshatriya. They could not, because we're so mixed as a population. The fixation index could not give this kind of a differentiation that they were looking for. So this eventually evolved into people looking at 2 more methodologies. One is called admixture, other one is called PCA studies. So basically they were trying to identify an admixture. If you take 2 populations, you try to see how the present day populations are related to these two ancient populations, right? You try to see what percentage did you get from this one, what population did you get from this one, percentage did you get from this one. That is the kind of things admixture does. The mathematical method. So mathematical method, you're trying to reconstruct with partial data from the present, partial data from the past. You're trying to figure out some mathematical fit between these two things by maximizing information criteria. Mathematics, all mathematics. Then the other kind of studies is that if I, for example, from southern India, I take samples and move northwards, right? Village by village, I go and take samples. I go northwards. Then I try to see what is the percentage you contributed to some maximal component, something called PCA, something called singular value decomposition. I can form a matrix. In this matrix, I can say population A has got mutation 1, mutation 5, mutation 6 in some percentage. Then the next village I go to, this is the x-axis and y-axis, I can say population 2 has got this one, this one, this one. I have a matrix eventually with rows and columns, a rectangular matrix. This I can compute something called singular value decomposition. If I take the maximum 2 and form a scale out of that, principal component 1, principal component 2, then I say what is the contribution of each of these villages to these different PCA1, PC1, PC2. I can do that. So by doing that, they hope to have a gradient. And with that gradient, they hope to tell a story that, yes, this is the way this one has moved from this geographical location to this geographical location. They're looking for clusters on this map over here that will tell them what is going on. Now, I have critiqued these things tremendously on the basis of the mathematics used. For example, in PCA analysis, very sensitive to scaling. Very, very sensitive. Supposing I take some samples, I take in Karnataka, I take 500 Brahmins and 10 Shudras. Then I go to Tamil Nadu and take 500 Shudras and 10 Brahmins. There's no difference. But if there was a difference, if I take samples like this, I'm going to skew the results.
Correct.
So how did you design your experiment? How did you select the data? How do you select the specimens? All these are questionable in the kind of studies that people are doing. So you can take the data and manipulate it in any way you want to get any result you want. That is what mathematics is all about. And you can do that. So it's not a big deal. So people were using the gender chromosomes to do PCA analysis, admixture analysis, and all of these kind of things in an effort to go beyond this FST, fixation index. Now, eventually they chanced upon something called R1A. R1A is in the Y chromosome. They're trying to see in the paternal lineage if there is something that we can find. Why paternal? Because the maternal mitochondrial was very stable in terms of what it was predicting. There was no differentiation they could make out over here. So the Y chromosome, they were able to see some differences, and they're trying to see. They try to say there is a variation of this R1A, the R1. R1A is in India, R1B is in Scandinavia. Okay, so they try to say that. Now, there's somebody called Peter Underhill who studied many 15,000 samples from different populations, and he proposed R1A mutation has occurred in the vicinity of Iran and India. That's where it has occurred. And this population has diverged at some point. And he proposed some timeline for that in addition. Now, different researchers have tried to give their opinion on where did R1A originate. Some people say it originated in Northwest India. Northwest India. Some people say South Asia. Some people say Central Asia. So opinions are divided based upon how you select your data for doing these things. So this could not answer the question. Now we are coming to 2000s and 2010 and so on, where computing technology, lab methods have increased a little more. So from Harvard Medical School, David Reich and others, they started using genome-wide studies. Said, why are you restricting yourself to gender chromosomes? Maybe there's some data in the remaining autosomes also that will tell a story over here. But the problem is in the ancient samples, it's difficult to construct the entire genome. Because if your skeleton has been lying in the soil for some time, it's contaminated by bacteria, by the salts in the soil and things like that. So it's very, very difficult to reconstruct that. So they use proxies and that kind of thing, and they claim they've got the genome-wide for the ancient samples. Present-day samples, no problem, we have the genome-wide data. And they try to do admixture, PCA, propose all kinds of things. And David Reich came out with Priya Murjani. They came out with the proposal that let us presume that there is an ancestral North Indian and an ancestral South Indian.
Presume.
That's a correct word. Choosing my words carefully. So with these theoretical models, they said, let us cluster the Indian populations around the ANI and the ASI. they tried to do this. And they came out with a theory, a very seminal paper, if you will, 2013 or so, which we tried to propose these two things and proposed a whole lot of things. So the ANI and the ASI, the only problem is, if the FST could not find out differentiation between North Indian and South Indian, how are we going to do ANI, ASI? So this whole thing was a work of somebody called Patterson, who was a bioinformatist in David Rice's camp, who tried to propose a model where they included the Andamanese DNA along with the Southern Indian.
Okay.
By including that in this pool, they're able to get a gradient between North and the South. Now the question is, why would you include the Andamanese and Southern Indian population to talk about present-day populations when they stopped merging more than 60,000 years ago? 60,000 years ago, if you believe out of Africa, that is when we stopped mixing with Andamanese people.
Yeah.
So why would you include them in today's population? So they did that only to make a gradient, to make this false kind of a thing.
Just to prove a point.
Just to prove a point. And so their proposal was, Iranian farmers came into India 7,000 years ago, north and south. And later on, this Aryan Invasion nonsense in the north that made the ANI pole, and ASI with the Andamanese and all those kind of things. This is what present Indians are. So this is the thing that captured imagination of various people, ANI, ASI, and there's some more people who came and said, well, for ASI, there's a better proxy, there's ASI, and things of this nature, let us use that. And they try to propose some more mathematical studies to do these kind of things. But the bottom line is, are these theories sound?
Yeah.
Are these models sound? What kind of data did you use? What are the claims that you are making based upon these things? Are the methodologies best in class? How did you initialize them? What kind of sensitivity studies have you done? What will happen if you take a few pieces of data out from your matrix in PCA and put some other pieces of data? How robust is your conclusion? Is there something different going to happen? Nothing. Silence on these things. Then a paper comes out in Science with Vagesh Narasimhan and other such people, where they have added some samples from cultural proximity of Harappa into their studies. And all of a sudden, you see a difference now. This Iranian farmers coming into India, that's a questionable thing. That may not be happening. And they have also, but they're clinging on to their claim of this linguistic migration into India around 2000 BCE and all those kind of things. Now, at this period of time, Harappa genome was decoded by Vasant Shinde and Neeraj Rai and several other people who had worked on this, along with David Reich and others. In that, they discovered that, well, first of all, it might be a female skeleton. It may not even be a male skeleton. So they tried to show there was an ancient ancestry with Andamanese and others, going back more than 40,000 years ago, consistent with what we said out of Africa and all those things, consistent with that. But then the funny thing is, it seems to show out of India into Iran, from Indus Valley Klein into Iran, and in Iran mixing gradually with Anatolia, meaning from Turkey, right? The population, as you go down in time, that kind of thing is happening. So it seems to be an out of India that has been predicted over here. We need more data to validate what I'm saying over here. But the point is that this is what the paper suggests to me, although they're positioning it differently. This is what is happening over here. So at this point in time, we have very questionable studies using a suspected methodology called PCA analysis and admixture, both of which are mathematical entities, trying to model the fit between present-day populations and ancient populations, which are very questionable. And claims are being made by aligning it with linguistics analysis. So these are not independent studies.
Okay.
But when people see the name Harvard, the pedigree matters, right? They immediately say, oh, Harvard scientists have done these things. This must be great. But the point is, these are narrow claims that people must make. In the context of maybe 1,000 samples that they have, you must make a narrow claim that this is what we have found. You cannot globalize your claim saying, I can answer the caste system, I can answer the Indian population, other such thing through this. All nonsense. You're in the realm of noise over here. Right. You can't statistically push it over here. That is my position on genetics.
Okay.
So we have covered several areas now.
Archaeology,
astronomy, linguistics, we covered literature, astronomy, and we came to genetics in addition.
Yeah.
So next, geology.
Yeah.
If you take climatology, geology, we got evidences from there and out of India. For example, we know that in climatology, India suffered a monsoon failure in 2000 BC, 4,000 years ago, where there's some evidence that Indians have gone out of India and settled in the Fertile Crescent. Fertile Crescent meaning Nile River Valley, Euphrates River Valley, Tigris River Valley. Lot of evidences I've given in my talks. So people can go and look at those things.
Sure.
Scientific evidences for these things. So Indian cultures moved out of India in this time frame. When linguistics is proposing it moved into India, we are instead showing it is moved out of India in the same time frame. And the trigger for this migration is the monsoon failure. That's the trigger for migration, whether it's through cattle genomics or through other means. We have got, including literature means from these regions, we got evidences of Indians going out. The Mitannis, for example, are an example of that. In the Egyptians, there is several evidences that Indians have gone and settled over there. Roman historian accounts, all these things are telling us these things. That is one aspect of climatology. In terms of river hydrology, Saraswati River. This is mentioned in the Rig Veda. Rig Veda is talking about a powerful Saraswati River from the mountains to the ocean. But there's a small catch over here. Linguistics is saying Rig Veda was composed in India after 1200 BCE. But in 1200 BC, there was no Saraswati River. It had dried up geologically, we know. By 1900 BC, the Saraswati River has run dry. And today, we can reconstruct that. We know the Sutlej used to feed into Saraswati River. But northern India is tectonically active. So thanks to earthquakes and things like that, massive earthquakes, the Sutlej River changed course and started feeding Sindhu. It starved the Saraswati by feeding into Sindhu. Yamuna, that was feeding into Saraswati, changed course and started flowing eastwards. Because of these things, Saraswati ran dry. And we know this happened by 1900 BC. It has already run dry. How can Aryans have then talked about powerful river?
Correct.
Today we have got radiocarbon dating from various sites in the Saraswati Sindhu area where there's no river today. Birhana, Rakhigadi, and all these places, which are dating back 9,000 years before present. So river hydrology and archaeology, radiocarbon dating is telling us a different story. All these evidences, if you put together, and much more that I'm not mentioning now.
Correct.
All these things are hinting that activity in the Indian civilization is occurring from 8000 BC to 3000 BC. Maximum activity is happening in intellectual tradition. Linguistics alone is sitting here at 1500 BC with no support from anything else. As a scientist, we must say, if there's a preponderance of evidence in this area, this is what we must accept and reject that outlier. That is what we do. So these are the evidences that I discuss mostly in rejecting whether it is invasion or migration. People try to say, he's talking about invasion, which we have debunked. Talk about migration. Well, it's the same. It is just change the name to migration. Whether it's migration or invasion, it is the same. Whatever I have said holds for both of them.